Greetings, my Israelite brothers and sisters, heirs, joint heirs, adopted, grafted, natural, spiritual, however you may come. I hope that this video, this car cam, finds you all well. This is a week that we're going to be having a lot of information put out, a lot of information. And I called this one Saturnalia, the predecessor to Christmas. That's what this car cam is about. Saturnalia, the predecessor to Christmas. The other night I came on and I was talking about Emperor Constantine and how Emperor Constantine was a supposed Christian. I apologize. The Catholics like saying that Constantine, the Roman emperor, was a Christian. But as to what Constantine was, his colleagues, those in the day, they documented something totally different. They say he did not become a Christian until he was on his deathbed. The fact of the reality is that Constantine had a goal, and that was to mix ideologies so that the earth that they were ruling could be easily managed. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to easily manage the earth by having one coin, one form of money, and one form of ideology through religion. The dilemma that he had, there were the pagans who had multiple gods. They had so many different gods. They had gods for everything. They had the sun god, the Saturn god, the wind god, the queen of heaven. They had so many gods that Emperor Constantine had a dilemma. And that was, how do I manage all of this? His way out was Christianity, because Christianity believed in only one true and living God. And he felt as if he could merge the philosophies and ideologies, then everything could be managed. So opposed to having the Christians convert, how could the Christians convert? Because there were so many pagan gods, which one would you convert to? So it was easy for Constantine to have the multiple pagans choose Christianity. How would he do it? He did it by joining them together. That's what Constantine's tactic was. But in all reality, Constantine worshiped the sun. And that's what's documented in history. And hence is how we came up with Sunday worship. And it's been an indoctrination through Catholicism throughout the world. And the scholars know it. All of the scholars know it. They know what was done. They know the history. And they know what the truth is. But now that it's being revealed, they don't know how to deal with that dilemma. This is why so many people are coming into the Sabbath. So many people are coming into the reality that, wait a minute, since we are in an era of technology, an era of information, people can get the information and they say, wow, this has all been a scam. It was never meant to be on the first day of the week, called Sunday. Sunday had a whole different meaning. But let's talk about Saturnalia for a second. Saturnalia is the predecessor to Christmas. It was the answer that they had to mix the two holidays. Back in earlier Christianity, nobody celebrated the birth of the Messiah. In early Christianity, the birth of the Messiah was never celebrated. Why? Because it was never on the table. It's not a date that's written in the book. It's not a feast day written in a book. It's not a celebration that's documented in the law. So it was never recognized by the earlier first original Christians. The birth of Christ was never memorialized. Only his death. Why his death? Because he said, as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Lord's death till he comes. So he wanted you to recognize his death, not his birth. So how did his birth get on the table? It got on the table because of a pagan holiday known as Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a December holiday. It was a December festival celebrated by the pagans, where they would have gift giving, rivalries, all kinds of just nonsense stuff. They would have drinking and fast action with women and all kinds of stuff. That's what worshiping Saturn was about. And it was done in the month of December. And that's why it is the predecessor. So it wasn't so much of the God that the pagans had, it was the festivities. So what Constantine did, and the bishops of Rome, they helped further the cause by creating a holiday. And attaching it to Christianity. So since it was the birth of the S-U-N, they said, let us keep the same phrase and let it be the birth of the S-O-N. And that's how they did it. Semantics. And they mixed the two. And not only did they do that, now that they had everybody worshiping the sun, the pagans agreed to go inside of their temple on Sunday. The Christians agreed that, wait a minute, let's take this Christianity and everybody worships on the first day of the week. And what we'll do is you can go in your temple and do your thing, and we can go in our temple and do our thing. And seemingly, it looks like that we're on the same page. But in reality, some were going into worshiping the S-U-N, while others were going in to worship the S-O-N. So Christianity became compromised. Christianity became tainted by the Romish version of Christianity. So they created a new worship day, being the first day of the week. And they created a birth of the Messiah that does not exist. The date is not provided in all of the scriptures, in the laws, or the testimonies. And they did this so Emperor Constantine could further his mission by making it look like that everybody was on the same page. And it was far from being true. Saturnalia is a festival that got Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's son, in trouble. It was during the festival of Saturnalia where the Babylonians, under the leadership of Belshazzar, was having a feast. And they were having the feast. He had all of his women out, as the scriptures describes, and he was having a feast that was a Babylonian feast day. And he said, let's go down and get the vessels of the Hebrews, of the Israelites, the vessels that were taken out of the temple that his father locked up. He said, let's go get those vessels and let's drink wine out of those vessels. And he did. And when he went down to do that, he was having a good time. And then all of a sudden, he sees some hands dance across the room. Nobody attached to it. Not a head, not an arm, no nothing. He just saw hands, just like this. And the hands went over to the wall. And it wrote something on the wall that only Daniel could read. And it said, you've been weighed in the balance. Tonight, your kingdom is going to be taken. And that night, Belshazzar dropped dead. And while he did that, while they were celebrating, the Medes and the Persians penetrated the wall through a river canal and went through the water on the other side. And that's how they penetrated the wall that surrounded Babylon. And they took over that night, took over the kingdom of Babylon that night. In the encyclopedia, it tells you that Babylon under Belshazzar was celebrating one of their annual feasts. And as they were drinking, the Medes and the Persians came through and penetrated the wall through a river canal. Something that they didn't expect anybody to come through. But the waters had went down. The level of the water had went down. And that's how the Medes and the Persians entered into and penetrated the wall of Babylon. And while they were drinking, they came in and overtook the place and took over. That's what the dictionary describes as to how the Medes and the Persians defeated Babylon. But the scriptures goes into a different account. It confirms that it happened, but it also lets you know, because Belshazzar was down there drinking wine and having his festivities using the vessels that came out of the temple, because the children of Israel had went into bondage by the Babylons, and they took all of their golden vessels out of the house of God, and they put them in a vault and locked them up. That's where Nebuchadnezzar put them at. And so Saturnalia, during the month of December, that's what it was. They gave gifts away. They did role playing. They did all kinds of crazy stuff on Christmas. They worshiped their various instruments of paganism. And today, that is what has creeped into Christianity. The Christmas tree has nothing to do with the birth of Christ. The mistletoe, nothing to do with the birth of Christ. The wreath on the door, nothing to do with the birth of Christ. The Yule log, nothing to do with the birth of Christ. The giving of gifts, nothing to do with the birth of Christ. So the question is, where did it come from? Well, this Friday night, we're going to be covering all of that. Tune in. Saturnalia, the predecessor of Christmas. Thank y'all for tuning in to this card cam. Just wanted to bring a little nugget. I want to say to Laughter, how you doing? Mark P, how you doing? Lady J, how you doing? I'm still just rejoicing from coming from Chicago to Israel of God this week. We had an awesome time. Sister Sheila, how you doing? Peace to all of you all. We'll talk soon.